apparently, that's enough. The predator drops Greg bolts. You've just invented the rescue mission. Now, Greg is bleeding, half-conscious, and missing a few pieces, but he's alive. Everyone stands around awkwardly, unsure of what to do next. You carry him back to camp, which takes forever because Greg's heavier than expected and keeps whining. Someone fetches leaves. Someone else just stares, impressed that this ridiculous plan actually worked. Over the next few weeks, Greg heals, slowly. You share food with him, chase away scavengers, and take turns keeping him warm at night. He contributes nothing except bad smells and grunts of appreciation. But when he finally stands again, something changes in the air. You all realize you've done something extraordinary. You cheated nature's rules. You weren't supposed to win that fight. You weren't supposed to save the wounded. You weren't supposed to cooperate beyond mating and screaming. But here you are, one tiger short, one friend richer. Saving Greg didn't make you saints. It made you stronger. A rescued human meant one more pair of eyes, one more thrower of rocks, and one less reason to panic alone. And from that single act of collective recklessness, humanity learned its first moral lesson. Sometimes, survival requires stupidity with a purpose. You've discovered a new emotion, dread with a side of responsibility. Ever since you and your tribe saved Greg from becoming tiger lasagna, something's changed. You don't just fear predators anymore, you fear losing each other, which is progress, but also exhausting. Now, every rustle in the tall grass feels personal. You can't relax, you can't nap, and you can't stop looking around like a paranoid meerkat on espresso. Congratulations, you've just invented anxiety. Evolutionally speaking, it's a hit. At night, you sit huddled with your group, listening to the laughter of hyenas echoing in the dark. It's the soundtrack of your nightmares. The elders, which just means anyone over 30, tell stories about the great beasts that once ate Cousin Rourke. You all nod solemnly, pretending this isn't going to happen again next week. But now, instead of running in 10 different directions like terrified squirrels, your tribe actually plans. You start posting lookouts. You choose sleeping spots closer to cliffs and trees. Someone even suggests taking turns staying awake, and everyone agrees, as long as it's not their turn. That's the first night watch, and naturally it goes terribly. The lookout falls asleep 10 minutes in. Still, the idea sticks. Fear becomes organization. Organization becomes survival. You learn to recognize the shapes of predators by moonlight, their tracks in the dirt, and the faint, musky smell of "we're about to die." When someone shouts, "Lion," you don't scatter. You form a noisy semicircle of bravery and bad posture. It's not much, but it's something. The younger members practice throwing stones farther. The older ones discover that shouting together is surprisingly intimidating. And slowly, your tribe begins to master the one weapon no predator can counter: coordination. You haven't conquered fear, you've franchised it. Everyone gets a small share. It binds you, shapes you, and keeps you alive. You start realizing that being scared isn't weakness, it's strategy. Fear makes you alert. It keeps you from wandering off alone. It makes you care whether Greg gets eaten again. For the first time, you're not just surviving despite fear. You're surviving because of it. You don't know who first figured it out, but one day, someone threw a stick into the fire and realized it kept glowing instead of dying. And just like that, the food chain got updated. Congratulations. You've unlocked Fire, humanity's first subscription-based safety plan. At first, everyone's terrified of it. Fire hisses, spits, and eats anything it touches. But once you realize lions won't come near it, the whole tribe agrees it's worth keeping around. Suddenly, you're sitting by a small circle of light, while the world's apex predators glare from the shadows, probably filing complaints with nature's customer service. The campfire becomes your new god. You feed it, protect it, and stare into it like it's Wi-Fi. It's hypnotic. The crackle drowns out the night, the warmth makes the cold bearable, and the smell of smoke masks your usual wet mammal aroma. For the first time, You can sit without flinching at every sound. It's bliss. Primitive, flickering bliss. Then the politics begin. Who controls the fire? Who gathers the wood? Who gets to sit closest? Within hours, humanity invents two things: comfort and conflict. Someone decides they're in charge of fire management, and everyone else immediately disagrees. The group splits into factions, those who think it should burn brighter, and those who think it's fine the way it is. Welcome to the world's first committee meeting. Still, despite the arguing, something magical happens. You start talking. Not in words yet, but in noises, gestures, and dramatic facial expressions. You tell stories about hunts, storms, and the time Greg nearly got eaten again. You don't know it, but you've just invented storytelling, the ancient art of exaggerating things that barely happened. Around the fire, you become something more than a group of nervous apes. You become a tribe. You share food, warmth, and gossip. You laugh, or whatever prehistoric laughing sounded like. You start to feel connected, not just by survival, but by memory. The fire keeps predators away, but more importantly, it keeps you together. And as you sit watching the sparks float into the night, you realize the truth. It's not the fire that changed everything. Eventually, you realize one's volunteering. This is how humanity invents the concept of responsibility. You take turns feeding the fire, the first rotation system in history. It's simple. If you're awake, you protect the tribe. If you're asleep, you're the reason everyone's tense. At first it's chaos. People fall asleep on shift, forget to bring wood, or accidentally set small things on fire, like themselves. But slowly, the system starts to work. Then someone comes up with an even more radical idea: trust. You start to believe the others will actually do their part. When they say, "I've got it," you don't stay awake just to check. You close your eyes and let go. For the first time, you experience peace. Well, light paranoia with a side of warmth. Congratulations. You've entered the world's first social contract. You protect me, I protect you. No signatures, no laws, just mutual anxiety keeping everyone in line. It's civilization in beta form, unstable but functional. Soon, this unwritten agreement expands. You share food, divide tasks, and cover for Greg when he forgets to watch the fire again. You start recognizing patterns of fairness and betrayal. Someone eats more than their share. They get glares. Someone risks their life for another. They get respect, and maybe extra mammoth fat. Over time, these little exchanges form a primitive moral code. It's not about right or wrong. It's about balance. Do your part, and the tribe survives. Don't, and you get quietly lost on the next hunting trip. You think you've invented ethics. Really, you've just invented teamwork under threat of abandonment. But hey, progress is progress. It's one of those peaceful mornings, the kind where the air is calm, the birds are chirping, and you're wondering which direction death will come from today. The tribe is moving through tall grass, carrying sharpened sticks that you call weapons, and predators call snacks. Then it happens. A boar bursts out of nowhere and impales one of your group. Not Greg this time, miraculously, but someone you actually liked. The creature flees, leaving behind a bleeding mess of limbs and shock. The group freezes. The smart move is to leave him. The human move is not to. So you stay. You press leaves against the wound. You drag him back to camp, leaving a trail so obvious even a blind hyena could follow it. But you don't care. Somewhere between instinct and stupidity, you've made a choice. You don't abandon your own. That night, everyone sits by the fire, taking turns watching over the injured one. You feed him water. You clean the wound with whatever doesn't immediately sting. You even share food with him, which feels noble until you realize you're now hungrier than the patient. He groans, twitches, and occasionally glares at you like he regrets not dying. Still, he lives another day. Days turn into weeks. The wound starts to close. He starts walking again, slowly, but alive. The tribe cheers. You're proud. mostly because you weren't sure the experiment in medical care wouldn't just turn into waiting for decomposition. And as ridiculous as it all felt, something sacred has quietly formed. Loyalty. You've learned that blood spilled together builds bonds thicker than language. You know who will run into danger with you, and who will pretend to tie their sandals instead. This shared madness, risking your life for someone else's bad luck, becomes tradition. You fight together, you heal together, and when one falls, the others stand over them until the danger passes. It's not religion yet, but it's close. You didn't invent brotherhood out of love. You invented it out of necessity. But over time, the two started to look suspiciously similar. And so, through blood, panic, and poor risk assessment, you became a species that fights back, together. You used to think compassion was for the weak. Now you're realizing it's just another survival tactic that happens to feel nice. Somewhere between patching wounds and yelling at Greg for eating the emergency berries, your tribe has started doing something strange, caring on purpose. One morning, you find an elder lying by the river, too weak to stand. In nature's eyes, they're expired inventory. But instead of walking away, you give them water. Someone brings food. Someone else fans the flies away. You're not sure why. They can't hunt, can't fight, and their only contribution is unsolicited advice about rocks. Still, you do it. This becomes routine. You start checking on the sick, sharing leftovers, making sure the little ones don't wander into crocodile country. It's inconvenient, time-consuming, and statistically bad for your calorie balance. But weirdly, it works. The more people you keep alive, the more people there are to help you later. Compassion, it turns out, has excellent return on investment. Soon, your tribe develops a whole caregiving system. Someone tends the fire, someone watches the injured, someone, usually you, gets stuck running errands for both. The tribe isn't just surviving anymore, it's maintaining itself. Congratulations. You've just invented basic healthcare without paperwork. Of course, not everyone's thrilled. Some argue that keeping the weak alive attracts predators. Others point out that compassion takes valuable time away from rock throwing and mammoth avoidance. You nod, pretend to agree, and then sneak back to feed the old man anyway. You can't explain it, but it feels right. One night, as you sit by the fire, the elder you helped mumbles a few sounds, something soft, grateful, maybe even affectionate. You don't understand the words, but you understand the feeling. You're connected. That's the real upgrade. Empathy as software. It doesn't make you faster or stronger. It just makes you better together. Predators may still hunt you. Hunger may still stalk you. But now, when one of you falls, the others reach out. Not because they have to, but because they can. And that, surprisingly, might be the first moment in history where being human didn't feel like a punishment. You've spent most of your life as walking protein. Everything with teeth has tried to eat you at least once. But lately, something's shifted. The predators are hesitating. The lions watch from a distance. The hyenas laugh less. Even the saber-toothed cats seem unsure if the effort is worth the chew. You and your tribe aren't faster or stronger or smarter, not yet. But you've discovered the one evolutionary superpower that changes everything. Spite. When one of yours gets attacked, you don't run. You grab sticks, stones, and anything vaguely throwable, and you chase the predator away, loudly, chaotically, and with the energy of a toddler defending their snack. Sometimes it works. Sometimes you just make the predator deeply uncomfortable. Either way, you've invented revenge. Soon, the other species start noticing. The big cats realize that attacking a human means getting swarmed by 10 screaming bipeds throwing rocks, like they're auditioning for a band called Panic and Stones. You're not a prey animal anymore. You're an inconvenience. The dynamic flips. Lions stop hunting near your camp. Hyenas circle from farther away. Even vultures look frustrated. Nature, it seems, didn't account for the power of organized stupidity. The real turning point comes when you kill your first predator. You don't mean to. You were just overcompensating. But there it is, a dead leopard, its body surrounded by sticks, bruises, and confused humans realizing what just happened. The tribe drags the carcass back to camp and stares at it for hours. It's part horror, part pride, part, should we eat this? Someone eventually says yes, and history's first poorly cooked revenge meal is served. It tastes terrible. But victory? Victory tastes good. From that day on, predators have a new problem. You bite back. You're still small, fragile, and slightly dumb, but now you're dangerous in groups. You've changed the game, not through strength, but through audacity. You don't know it yet, but this is the first crack in the natural order. For the first time, the apex predators of the world look at your campfire, hear your laughter, and realize something horrifying. Dinner has developed teamwork. The days belong to you now. Mostly. You can walk the plains without constantly assuming your obituary is being written in paw prints. But the nights? The nights are still terrifying. Darkness is where nature hides its horror movie budget. The moment the sun dips, the temperature drops, and everything that didn't eat during the day comes looking for a midnight snack. That snack, as always, is you. So, you adapt. Your tribe builds fires around the sleeping area, glowing circles of safety that keep the dark at a polite distance. The flames pop and crackle, throwing strange shadows on the rocks. The air smells of smoke, sweat, and nervous optimism. You've learned the hard way that the universe doesn't do refunds, so you keep your guard up. The tribe assigns watch duty. You take turns sitting by the fire, staring into the void, and trying not to imagine how close death is. It's peaceful for about 5 minutes. Then your brain starts composing every possible way things could go wrong. Welcome to the first documented case of night shift anxiety. You sit there clutching a half-burnt stick, listening to the rustling grass. Every sound is suspicious. A twig snaps. Probably wind. Another sound, definitely not wind. You squint into the dark, heart pounding, trying to see what your instincts are already screaming about. Nothing happens. Hours pass. Your eyes burn. You've learned that vigilance feels exactly like insomnia. Sometimes you hear growls in the distance. Sometimes glowing eyes flash beyond the firelight, watching, calculating. But they don't come closer. You realize the fire isn't just light. It's a warning sign. It says, "This food bites back." Eventually, you're relieved by the next watcher. Someone equally miserable and half asleep. You lie down, curling near the warmth, knowing someone else is now responsible for your continued existence. It's oddly comforting. You've built something resembling trust, or at least a shared sense of dread, and that's how humanity conquered the dark. Not with courage, but with insomnia and teamwork. When the sun rises, you wake to bird song and ash, alive again. You look at your tribe, tired, smelly, but still here, and realize something profound. Safety, it turns out, isn't the absence of danger. It's just taking turns worrying about it. You like to think you invented teamwork, but then you meet the Neanderthals. Stockier, stronger, and suspiciously better at surviving winter, they make you look like the off-brand version of humanity. They're the older cousins who went to trade school while you were still figuring out how to sit by the fire without burning your knees. At first, you think they're intimidating. Broad shoulders, big skulls, those deep-set eyes that say, "I could bench press you." But then you notice something unexpected. They care for each other, genuinely. Not just the usual, "don't die because I need your help" type. Actual, long-term emotional investment. It's unsettling. You find an injured one once, limping along with a crude wooden crutch. His legs bent in a way legs shouldn't be. And yet, he's alive. His tribe feeds him, shelters him, and makes sure he doesn't get left behind. You stare, wondering how a creature capable of crushing rocks with its forehead can also practice compassion. It's like watching a bear knit. As time goes on, you see more signs. Burials with flowers, carefully arranged stones, bodies covered in ochre pigment. Rituals, not instincts. These people don't just survive together, they remember together. You start to realize they've taken the idea of protecting your own and upgraded it into culture. You feel oddly inspired and slightly jealous. Your tribe tries to imitate them. Someone breaks an arm, and instead of shrugging, you all help carry them back. Someone dies, and you don't just walk away this time. You pile rocks over the body, clumsy but deliberate. You don't fully understand what you're doing, but it feels like respect. The Neanderthals show you something profound. Survival doesn't just mean breathing. It means being seen, remembered. You begin to care about what happens after someone's gone, not because it helps you live, but because it helps you feel human. You'll never admit it, of course. When someone asks why you buried Greg with flowers, you just grunt. Seemed practical. But deep down, you know the truth. You didn't do it for practicality. You did it because, for the first time in history, the dead weren't just gone. They mattered. You've mastered compassion, cooperation, and late-night anxiety. You've buried your dead and fed your injured. Very wholesome stuff. But eventually, you realize something. Being nice doesn't stop you from starving. And that's how you invent organized violence. It begins innocently enough. Your tribe spots a herd of something large, slow, and extremely edible. You all exchange meaningful grunts. One person picks up a sharp stick. Another sharpens it more because that's how innovation works. Within hours, you're all holding spears and pretending you know what to do with them. You surround the herd. Everyone moves in silence, except Greg, who sneezes. The herd panics. One charges, one falls, and chaos erupts. You scream, run, throw, trip, and somehow stab something that bleeds in your direction. Miraculously, it dies before you do. The tribe celebrates. There's jumping, shouting, and a lot of accidental stabbing during high fives. You've killed your first meal as a team. It's messy, exhausting, and slightly traumatizing, but it works. From this day forward, together doesn't just mean let's not die. It means let's kill something bigger than us. Word spreads fast. Nearby tribes see your hunting success and either want to copy you or fight you for your mammoth steaks. Within a generation, cooperation evolves into coordination, and coordination evolves into warfare. You've gone from protecting each other to let's make sure they don't eat our food. Your ancestors would be so proud. Before long, you're inventing strategies, ambushes, decoys, the ancient art of let's shove this guy forward and see what happens. Everyone suddenly has opinions on leadership, and nobody listens to anyone else. Still, you win more often than you lose. That's progress. But here's the twist. The same skills that let you kill better also make you protect better. You defend your camp, your food, your people. Violence, once random, becomes collective, dark twin of compassion. It's the first time in history empathy and aggression share the same tent. You don't realize it yet, but this mix, this dangerous cocktail of love and fury, is what will one day build cities, raise armies, and start empires. For now, though, you just know one thing. Teamwork gets results, especially when you're armed. By now, your tribe has developed a reputation. Brave, loyal, and just smart enough to survive another day. You save your wounded, protect your weak, and share your food. It's all very touching. But every system eventually fails. And in your case, it fails hilariously. It starts when you decide to rescue someone you shouldn't. Maybe it's a stranger. Maybe it's Greg again. It's probably Greg. He's injured, loud, and bleeding enough to make you a walking neon sign for predators. You drag him back anyway, because you've decided kindness is your brand now. That night, the scent of blood attracts something big, something with claws. The fire flickers as you hear it circle, patient, quiet, and very interested in Greg's leg. Your tribe panics. Half grab weapons, half grab each other. For 30 seconds, civilization teeters on the edge of extinction again. Eventually, you scare it off, but not before realizing a painful truth. Has side effects. Saving the weak makes the group slower. Feeding the sick drains your supplies. Sometimes you risk everyone for one person who contributes nothing but new reasons to stay awake at night. You start arguing. The group splits into two factions, team empathy and team efficiency. One side insists every life is sacred, the other side quietly sharpens rocks. Meetings get tense. Someone suggests ethical abandonment, which sounds sophisticated until you hide the smell. You rotate guards. You invent the first rule of survival ethics. Be nice but not suicidal. Over time you learn balance. Compassion isn't about saving everyone. It's about saving the tribe. Sometimes that means helping. Sometimes that means running faster. You become pragmatic, philosophical even. You realize love without boundaries just feeds the lions. And so humanity evolves, not by being perfect, but by arguing about what good actually means. In short, you invented morality, and in true human fashion immediately turned it into a debate. You'll be proud to know we've kept that tradition going ever since. You've learned to fight, to care, and to not let Greg ruin everything. But the real secret of survival isn't strength or speed, it's trust. And in your world, trust is about as rare as a full night's sleep. Still, it begins in small ways. You start noticing who shows up when things go wrong, who stands beside you when the hyenas get too close, who actually takes their turn at fire duty instead of pretending to gather wood until sunrise. Over time, patterns form. You know who's dependable, who's flaky, and who's better off as bait. You don't have language yet, but you don't need it. One glance says everything. I've got you. Or occasionally, you first, I'll watch. Trust becomes the invisible rope that holds your fragile tribe together. And like all ropes, it occasionally snaps. Because the moment you start trusting people, they start disappointing you. Someone eats more than their share. Someone falls asleep on watch. Someone definitely lies about how much mammoth they contributed. And yet, you forgive them. Mostly because you need them. Civilization, as it turns out, is built on strategic forgiveness. Then comes the real test. One day you're far from camp, scouting for water when a predator ambushes you. You run, stumble, and fall. Because of course you do. You brace for the end. But instead of leaving, your companion turns back. They scream, wave their arms, and throw rocks until the predator retreats. You live. That night, as you sit by the fire, you look across the flames and lock eyes with the person who risked their life for you. Something in your brain shifts. This isn't just survival anymore. It's connection. Dangerous, irrational, and profoundly human. You trust them completely now. You'd share food with them, watch their back, maybe even forgive them if they stole your favorite stick. That's how tribes turn into families, not by blood, but by shared near-death experiences. Trust, you realize, is the first luxury you've ever earned. It makes the cold warmer, the fear quieter, and the future slightly less impossible. And in a world full of things trying to eat you, that's close enough to love. So, after all the running, bleeding, and near-death teamwork, you finally have your answer. Did early humans save each other from predators? Yes, constantly, stupidly, heroically. You weren't built to survive. You were built to cooperate under extreme duress. You were soft, slow, and screamingly edible. But you had each other. And somehow, that was enough. When danger came, you didn't hide. You formed circles, yelled nonsense, and threw rocks until the universe gave up trying to kill you. You stayed up all night guarding the fire. You carried the wounded when it made no sense to. You dragged Greg back from death at least 3 times. And not once did you get a thank you. That's fine. You didn't do it for glory. You did it because the alternative was extinction. Over time, survival stopped being a solo project. You stopped living with fear and started living for each other. Compassion became strategy. Empathy became armor. You realized that the only thing scarier than a hungry lion was being alone. That's the real evolutionary miracle, not tools or fire or language. It's the decision to reach out when everything else in nature told you to run. You didn't become human by inventing weapons. You became human by inventing rescue. Even now, thousands of years later, the instinct remains. You still form groups when you're scared. You still gather around glowing lights in the dark, though now they're screens instead of fires. You still talk, share stories, and comfort strangers who'll never meet you. Different world, same wiring, and somewhere deep in your DNA, an ancient voice whispers, "Don't leave anyone behind." So yes, you did save each other. Not because you were noble, but because you were terrified. Because your fear was shared, and so was your courage. Because saving someone else was, somehow, the same as saving yourself. And that strange, stubborn instinct, to stand between danger and another fragile human, is why you're here, breathing, watching, listening, instead of just another set of bones on the savannah. Turns out survival was never about strength. It was about sticking together and screaming louder than the lions.